to have in, you know, so you can study it. Okay, great.
Sure.
Are we all here? We start now, shall we?
Yes, please.
All right, people, so that you should do, who sings the prayer? You should be doing the prayer because it's the center offering the mandala as a request for the teaching. So who's the Umze?
Lena.
All right, where's Lena? Sing it, Lena. So we imagine everybody, what we're imagining is we're piling up all the marvelous things of the world that make people happy, and we're offering it to the Buddha as a request for the teachings. All right.
Sajipuki Jukshin Meto Tramri Ravlinji Nidegyen Pati Sangye Jindu Miterulwa Idyokunamdak Jinla Chuparshog. And we will recite the request to turn the wheel of Dharma in English so that everybody can follow. O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of the Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained.
Now we imagine Buddha very happily accepting our offering when we say this. Buddha, imagine Buddha very happily accepting our offering. Idam
Guru Ratnam
Okay. So now I'll lead this next prayer, and as always, reminding us of our reliance on the Buddha and his teachings, the first two lines, and the second two lines stating our purpose. Our reason for being here together is to listen to the teachings so that we can become a Buddha, so we can benefit all sentient beings. That's our long-term goal, okay? Sangye charang soke tognam la rancho bari kyapsuchi dagi chunyen gipa sonam ki drola penchi sangye drupa shog sangye charang soke tognam la rancho bari kyapsuchi dagi chunyen gipa sonam ki drola penchi sangye drupa shog. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly, by the merits, by the positive karma we create from listening to these teachings. May we become Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. All right, thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Nina. So this is our first, this is the next four teachings.
Thank you, Venerable. And sorry about all the mistakes in the tunes.
Oh, never mind.
Our voice is not as beautiful as yours, unfortunately, but we're learning. Thank you.
So listen, then what we're doing here, this is our first one on the 6 perfections. We've got 4 weeks of this one, haven't we? Right. Okay.
3 weeks, Venerable.
3 weeks. Okay, good. 3. Okay, great. So then, you know, that's why it's important to get, this is why, you know, we talk about the Lamrim, we talk about this overview. It's incredibly important to have the overview. It's incredibly important to have the context, to have the framework. And that, I think it's the one that we find hardest in the modern world. This is the one we find hardest to do, because we hear spiritual teachings like we give them all equal status. Oh, there's compassion. Oh, there's emptiness. Oh, there's karma. We don't, you know, this is such an important point. I can't stress it enough. You know, when you learn music and you look at a music book and you're in grade 3, as soon as you open that page, you go, oh my God, that's too advanced for me. That's grade 7. Or you look at another page. Oh, I've done that. That's grade 2. You fit it into where you are at. We're not used to thinking of spiritual teachings like this. And I say it all the time, and it takes a while to go in. That's why this packaging of the teachings, the Lamrim, is just fundamentally incredible. I mean, Atisha came from India, this genius, scholar, yogi, saint, you know, back in the 11th century or something, 10th century, whenever it was. He'd been years and years in Sumatra with his guru, Salingpa. He'd come from the great Nalanda tradition in India, the monastery, the great monastic university there. And then he went and spent the last years, 10, 15 or 20 years of his life in Tibet, I don't know, 17 or something. And the Dharma had been flourishing there beautifully, you know, these amazing tantric yogis, starting with Padmasambhava, these unbelievable high yogis, you know. But I mean, this is me kind of paraphrasing a bit, kind of, you know, they kind of lost the plot, he thought. So he wrote this little text, this little verse text, deceptively simple, that he called The Light That Guides You on Your Way. All those lovely poetic titles they have, you know. So this light that guides you on your way is the light, whatever they call it, you know, this text. Basically, he took all the, what he did was he took all the main points from this vast body of knowledge that's studied in this, you know, this incredible system going back thousands of years, from all the philosophy, psychology, metaphysics, epistemology, you know, all the vast body of knowledge, all of Buddha's path to enlightenment. And he took the experience, he took the points, he took the main points from the experiential point of view. And from experiential point of view on any path, Lamrim, as Tsongkhapa called it in the 14th century, gradual path, it's a course basically. And you end up, you graduate as a Buddha. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and you eventually graduate as a Buddha. So the teachings are presented progressively according to the capacity. So it always is a surprise to us to hear that compassion is university level, you know. This seems, well, but many people become Buddhas because they like compassion. But I mean, and this is what we're going to discuss in this 3 weeks. What did we talk about the last 4 weeks? I forget. What was it we talked about, Talia?
8-worthy Dharma.
Oh, so it's all on the same path. Okay, so we're all familiar with this. Okay, I forgot. Thank you very much. Okay, this is perfect. So we've been on the Bodhisattva path the whole time. Okay, that's good. So the 8 worldly dharmas is like the summary of all the teachings that enable us to accomplish bodhicitta. And once we've accomplished bodhicitta, our next phase of practice is called the 6 perfections of the Bodhisattva, which is what we're going to do this next 3 weeks. But again, I want to give it the framework that we've been talking all these weeks, you know, giving it this framework. So important. And so to remember, so then what is it? So then once a Bodhisattva, once a person has, you know, gone to junior school and high school, got renunciation, gone to university level, achieved bodhicitta through the practice of those 9 different stages, starting with equanimity, and the most advanced of those practices is called Tonglen. The whole genre of practice is called exchanging self for others, which includes transforming problems, which includes the 8 worldly dharmas, which includes those 8 verses, which includes that whole approach, transforming problems into happiness, you know. That's the most radical way to get this bodhicitta. And so this whole path, you know, fearless is right. I mean, they talk about these brave bodhisattvas, these outrageous beings. When you think about these bodhisattvas, what they are, what they're trying to accomplish, it's opposite to the world, honestly, opposite to the world. Even as any dharma, I mean, Milarepa said, whatever the world thinks, dharma's opposite, you know, or whatever dharma is, the world is opposite. So the Bodhisattva path especially, you know, I mean, junior school and high school, in the first and second scopes of the Lamrim, we're playing safe. We're keeping out of the way. We're subduing our body, our speech, and our mind. We're trying not to harm others. We're trying to behave nicely. We're trying to be skillful. We're trying to be humble and careful. We're trying to leave sentient beings alone. We're trying to zip our lip and keep our hands to ourselves. Why? Because we are sick of suffering. Now we continue to work on our mind to the Bodhisattva path as we've been talking. Continue. That never ceases all the way to Buddhahood. We never stop working on our mind. But what drives us now is this, you know, what drives us to continue working on our mind is now the wish to break down the barriers between self and other, these artificial barriers that ego grasping and attachment and aversion have created. So the first stages of practice, we're trying to harness all that energy and get some semblance of discipline and equanimity and therefore contentment and joy in our own mind. Now we continue to work, and it's in reference to others. The reference point in the Bodhisattva path is others. So, you know, as we've talked, and this sounds pretty abstract to us, you know, that the idea that we're separate beings is the fact that you could be anything else seems totally the most bizarre thing we've ever heard. That sounds completely like religion, you know, completely. I mean, there's no concept in modern psychology. There's not a fraction of a concept anywhere remotely in modern psychology and modern neuroscience, because we're describing the brain. There's no discussion about brains merging and becoming one brain. That sounds like some kind of nightmarish science fiction. But this is the Buddha's point. that when we've finally achieved the goal, when we finally removed all these neuroses in the mind that have created a separate self, it's as if you are oneness with others. It's as if you are oneness with others. Your mind has got infinite wisdom. You no longer have any delusions left. Therefore, you're infinitely blissful right there. And you've got this infinite empathy with others just naturally, because there's no longer a separate sense of self. So it's as if you are one with every being. And you also have the wisdom when you're a Buddha to see their minds perfectly and know how to help them. So all this path is leading us towards that outrageous goal, you know. So I think we did go, I'm not sure if we would go through all those the different stages that culminate in the accomplishment of bodhicitta. But now the logic is, now we've got bodhicitta. Now our next phase of practice, the final stage, is perfecting the two wings of the bird. You could say that. So the first four of these perfections are the perfecting of the compassion wing. And basically a bodhisattva, you know, they've got this long-term goal. I mean, long-term, they're meaning countless lifetimes. The long-term goal is, I'm going to become a Buddha, because bodhicitta is not equivalent to compassion. It's a Sanskrit word. And I think we keep using the Sanskrit because the English is just so boring. Like awakening thought. I mean, who cares, you know? So it's a foreign word, but one gets familiar with the meaning of it. So this bodhicitta's got two main aspects, which you've already accomplished in these first stages, based on equanimity, going up to love, compassion, great compassion, and then finally with Tonglen, making this paradigm shift, where now, this is bodhicitta, now only others arise in your mind. There's no longer, for a bodhisattva, from the first moment, you've achieved this bodhicitta. And it's not just a passing moment, it's a stable realization. It's in your mind. It's there. Once you've got it, you've made this complete shift. I mean, it's gradual. Where now others preoccupy your mind. You only exist for others. Even your breath is only for the sake of others. Everything. And this is over lots of work on the wisdom wing, compassion, and you know, so it doesn't come overnight. It's not like some magical experience you have in a meditation. It's a gradual realization. And itself is just, I mean, Lama Zopa never stops talking about the qualities of a bodhisattva. I mean, I have to look up his book to see look up his teachings for all this, because there's so many unbelievable qualities. I can't remember most of them. But just even the concept that you can imagine, the idea that your mind is so enormous now, so profound, you've got wisdom. You mightn't have realized emptiness yet, but you've got incredible wisdom. You've got renunciation. You deeply understand suffering. You're completely on the case. You're incredibly disciplined. And by the time you've got this bodhicitta, you've got unbelievable love for sentient beings. What's love? Love is a thought. May you be happy. And so it's developed to an incredible degree. You only want others to be happy. That's what love means. Of course, it's not polluted by any attachment. That's gone. And not only that, they've got compassion. What's compassion? That's the thought, may others not suffer. So love and compassion are like, you know, they're like flip sides. One is only wanting others to be happy. One is only wanting others not to suffer. But the key point in here, and I'm sure I've mentioned this the last 4 weeks, the key factor, the key component of compassion on the bodhisattva path is expressed in this term, this technical term, mahakaruna, great compassion. It's not just a nice phrase, it's a technical term. And that's not only, oh my God, look at the suffering. Not only may everybody be happy, but the one of suffering, not only may you not suffer, but it's then it's this brave attitude of the bodhisattva that says, it's my job. What can I do to take it away? That's the action point. This is the huge, profound difference between regular compassion and this one of the bodhisattvas. It's this incredible sense of responsibility. It's like their job description. They know it's their job. I always use the analogy of a mother, an ordinary mother. She'll see her kid drowning. Unbelievable compassion. But she doesn't check to think who's going to save my baby. Look around the beach. Whether she swims or not, she's in that water. It's her job. It's like and this really makes sense. A mother by definition, what's a mother by definition? That term is a person who has children. So he's responsible for children. And ideally having love and compassion. You know, that's the idea. So that's clear for a mother. There's no doubt. There's never a second, who's going to save my baby? You're in the water, you know, that's bodhisattvas, but for every sentient being, as nutty as that sounds. So in other words, when you, it's sort of, if you try and understand if that's so powerful in a person's mind, it's because the delusions have gone. Our mind right now, we do have compassion, but you look at it, it's really limited. I mean, we get tired after a while. We get exhausted. I mean, people burn out, as we say, and they almost got to go kill themselves because we are so limited in our capacity of compassion because of attachment and aversion and all the others. They drag us down. But can you imagine a mind that doesn't have aversion or attachment? I mean, it's inconceivable for us to conceptualize that. So naturally, there's no room for anything else. So the room for compassion is just to grow limitlessly. But it's this gradual process, step by step by step by step, you know. It's incredible, unbelievable. I remember having a discussion in Kathmandu years ago at our center there in the city. And there were some lovely Lutheran people came. They all come as a group and they want to know about Buddhism. So we discussed all the differences, you know. And I remember talking about bodhicitta and bodhisattvas, the path of the bodhisattva, how they go from life to life, which we're going to talk about, how they go from life to life to life, driven by their wish to help others. And I remember there's one fellow, he was wonderful, they were lovely people. He said, no, that's terrible. I don't want that, he said. I want to die and go to heaven with God. Now, that's the goal. So, you know, this is where the Buddha's view would be the same as achieving your own nirvana. You see, this is the difference between the bodhisattva path and the other path. The first stages of the practice to Buddhahood, or that first path, which is known in the world as Theravada, you know. That's the goal there as you graduated high school. Let's analyze this for a second. Let's analyze this. First point, your goal, your motivation, your goal is I'm going to achieve liberation from samsara. I'm going to give up suffering and its causes, which is stupendously amazing, unbelievable to want that level of, you know, renunciation, which gives you the determination to work life after life, doing the junior school, Abadi Mother Laws of Karma, doing purification, getting rid of, you know, controlling your body and speech, then going to high school, getting shamatha and doing and unpacking and unraveling your ridiculous delusions, getting rid of attachment, getting rid of anger, getting rid of all the dramas. Then you will start to meditate on emptiness, and eventually one life or other, you'll cut the root of samsara. You'll then perfect your realization of emptiness in one life or other. You don't come back. Now, how would you be? Think like this. How would you be if you achieve this? Well, you can't, forget bodhicitta, okay? This, you can't even imagine the marvelous person. There's no attachment. There's no anger. There's no delusions. There's only wisdom. They're joyful. They're blissful. They're clear. They've got clairvoyance. They're amazing. And of course, you would only have love and compassion. What else would you have? It doesn't disappear. Of course, you've got love, because there's no room for anything else. Of course, you've got compassion and generosity and forgiveness and patience and kindness. You're a stupendous person. But the point is this, because your goal from life after life after life has been, I'm going to get the hell out of samsara. You can't wait to get out because suffering's so disgusting. And that's renunciation. That's pretty incredible. So then, driven by that motivation, life after life, then when you do finally, in whichever life, you know, you're gradually developing your love, your compassion, you're developing your wisdom, you're developing your joy, and you're to levels of incredible bliss. And then in one life or other, as I said, when you become, finally you've achieved your own Buddhahood, sorry, not Buddhahood, you finally achieve your own liberation, you become a Hinayana Arhat, a foe destroyer, you've done the job. And then when you die, what happens is you're blissful, you're compassionate, you're loving, there's no question, but your bliss and your motivation override your love and compassion, and you go zapping off into bliss and stay there for a few eons. And then Buddha comes along and taps you on the shoulder and says, okay, honey, time to get out of this bliss and get back on the Mahayana path and become a Buddha so you can help others. One Lama said that to give up that bliss is the worst suffering in the universe for those Hinayana Arhats. Anyway, this is the Mahayana interpretation. Now, they've got compassion and love, no question. But the unique one of the Bodhisattva is they go through the same stages. You go through the same level of liberation. You go through the same stages of getting rid of delusions. You go through the same stages of developing wisdom, of joy, of bliss. Same stages of developing love and compassion. Naturally, they will come because as you get rid of delusions, so love and compassion fill up the space. But because you're on the bodhisattva path, your motivation isn't just liberation. Your motivation is Buddhahood. And what drives that is this great compassion. Hey, it's my job to benefit others. So when you die, and eventually bodhicitta, so when you die, your compassion and bodhicitta override your bliss, and you keep coming back for the sake of others. So that's the key characteristic that differs is the great compassion. It's my job. I mean, I know in the teachings, I think Lama Zopa refers to it as the special attitude. And I'm a bit confused how that differs from great compassion. So I'll have to look it up and let you know next week, perhaps. I'm a bit confused about that. But this great compassion is not only, oh my God, look at the suffering, but it's what can I do to help? I always quote Martin Luther King, and blew my mind, this man, you know, you could tell he was a patient fellow. He didn't get angry. At the time, I thought he was a wimp. I liked Malcolm X better, but now I think they're both wonderful. It's okay. I read a book recently about both of them. They've really kind of come to the same conclusion. They both kind of met in the middle eventually. They both got shot, didn't they? Anyway, Martin Luther King was clear he wasn't impatient. He wasn't angry, but he had this incredible perseverance. So he said, it's good to be angry. He meant it's good to find fault. Look at the world. Look at the suffering. Look at the racism. Look at this. Look at that. But then he said, then you say, what can I do to help? That's great compassion. That's great compassion. But that, and then talk about fearless. That takes incredible energy. Think about it. The suffering in the world is overwhelming. Look at it, you know. Because the first thing is we say, what can I do about it? And this is where bodhicitta comes in. Because we're going through this path and we're using Buddha's views, he's got an assessment of what suffering is, and he's got an assessment of how to get rid of it. So whereas we don't have that in our culture. I mean, materialists are saying, nothing wrong, we haven't found the answers yet. Fine, keep looking, please. Well, Buddha's suggesting he's found the answers. Don't believe him, but you know, look at his evidence, that's all. So if you're on the Buddhist path, you've got already sorted it, you've sorted it out in the beginning, why there is suffering, what suffering is, and what causes it. So you're practicing that yourself. And the logic here is by the time you get to this path, you've pretty much given up cause, not all the way, but you're on the case. You know why there's suffering. You dealt with your own junk first in the wisdom wing. Now you're courageous because you look at the rest of the world and you go, my God, we're in the same boat. Look at this. And you know why there is suffering. And you think this point. Most of the reason we mostly suffer is because we say, why is this happening? Either why is this happening to me? I don't deserve it. Or we look at the world and all the innocent victims being harmed and brutalized and raped and bombed. Why is that happening? They don't deserve it. That point is at which where we go mad because we don't have explanations. And I'm not being rude. You can think Buddha's an idiot. He might have a wrong explanation, but he's at least got one. Jesus has got one too. That's fine. They'll get their own. Well, we're dealing with Buddhas here. So if you're on this path, you've got some courage by now because you know why there's suffering. First, you checked out your own in the wisdom wing. Now you're going to apply that to everybody. We're all in the same boat. Look at this mess. And then the main one, the basis for compassion, the bodhisattvas for all of us, is that we're totally ignorant. We're up a garden without, no, not a garden. You're not up a garden without a paddle. You're up a creek without a paddle, aren't you? You've lost yourself. I forget the garden one, whatever it is. You're up a garden. What is it? I forget the garden one. Anyway, you're up a creek without a paddle, we say in English. I don't use Swiss people say. So you've lost the plot. You don't know what's going on. And that's why we are confused. We are ignorant. We don't know why we're suffering. The whole universe believes the outside world is the cause of their suffering. That's it. Well, that's Buddha says, sorry, mates, you're wrong, you know. So when you're on the case with karma, already you've got courage about yourself and you persevere dealing with the dramas. Now you start to look at others. And then because you see the suffering, because the more you see your own suffering, that's what qualifies you to see the suffering of others. If you know the suffering because you've been inside your own self. You know deeply what suffering is and what its causes are. So the more you do that in your own mind, the more you look at others and you cannot believe, look at the nightmare. And so then you figure this great one of the great compassion is the attitude that says, it's my job. And it says, if I don't do it, who will? That's the mother. That's responsibility. And we all know we admire people who take responsibility, who just get in there and do the job, you know. That's the courage of the bodhisattva. And of course, they have the view of never giving up. I mean, it sounds like exhausting. Well, the Buddha's idea is your mind never ends anyway, so you might as well get used to it and have enthusiasm. Because enthusiasm, you know, we're going to get to that. That's the fourth perfection. It's very tasty. So this is an outrageous view. And that's why I use simple examples of people staring at us in our face, like the Dalai Lama. We think, the Dalai Lama is wonderful. Oh, isn't he amazing? Wow, 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 you know. Well, analyze it. What do you think? How do you think he got to where he is? Every word we're talking about here is what he's done, you know. He's the proof of the pudding. He hasn't stopped for 60. In fact, he hasn't stopped for 70 years. He was 15 when the Chinese come barging in up in Kham on the eastern Tibet, come barging into the country saying it's theirs. 1949, 1950. He was 15 years old. He took over running his country. Can you imagine? Talk about courage. And he hasn't stopped since he's 15. He's now 85. 70 years, people. He hasn't given up. That's the proof of the pudding of a bodhisattva. He's a living example of it, you know. So what are we looking at? We're looking at a person who's funny, stable, ethical. He's humble. He doesn't tell you all his qualities. Knowledgeable. Has compassion and love for anybody. It's absolutely evident. The words that come out of his mouth, the laugh he has, he can't pretend. He can't pretend not to be angry. It's not possible. He has no anger. So he doesn't talk much about karma. He talks like an ordinary person for us modern people. But obviously he's a proof of this. He's the result of this system. And if he is who he is, they say he's a Buddha. If he is who he is, they say he's a Buddha. I don't know. That means his mind is as vast as the universe. He sees each mind perfectly. He sees all the karma each being has created exactly. He knows exactly how to benefit every one of us. He's got the three qualities of a Buddha, you know. Infinite wisdom. That for the Buddha, that's a fact. That which exists is that which can be cognized by mind. Every mind has the benefit. We're going to discuss this when we get to the sixth perfection, which is emptiness. We're going to have to hurry, so I've only got 3 sessions. I have to speed it up. So wisdom to see things as they are. Infinite empathy with every being, as if they were him. And never gives up. Because there's nothing. What makes us give up is because we've got delusions. We get tired. We've got a bag of bones we have to lug around, you know. We get depressed, get angry, stressed, anxious, because we have delusions. He doesn't have delusions. He won't admit to that. He'll tell you he gets angry and things. He's got to act like a normal person. Otherwise, we think he's weird. But if he is what he is, he's got no delusions. It's not possible. He's got wisdom, infinite compassion. So he doesn't give up. He's always happy and perky. He's always optimistic. Optimism is a key function of enthusiasm. Another one is enthusiasm, which is the 4th of the 6 perfections, which we'll talk about. This is the crucial one we need. Enthusiasm, never give up. So you can't just overnight be like that. You've got to do the work. Junior school, high school, university. It's clear. So, you know, and then they're courageous bodhisattvas and they're fearless because, you know, the bodhisattva before they get to become a Buddha, isn't it? On the stages of becoming a Buddha. The first moment you've achieved, anyway, never mind, we won't go there. Okay, so let's just look into the 6 perfections then, at this level of the practice. So the logic being that the bodhisattva's now, the person's now achieved bodhicitta, they're labeled a bodhisattva. First moment of having bodhicitta, which imply after all the work of equanimity, love, compassion, all that business, you know, Tonglen, exchanging self for others, all of that. So your next stage of practice is now the 6 perfections. The first 4, as I said, are you perfecting the compassion wing, and they're summarized as 4 practices: generosity, morality, enthusiasm or joyful effort. Sorry, patience and then joyful effort. Different terms they use for these 4. So the first one, they're all taught too. They're taught in terms of difficulty. So generosity is the least difficult, then more difficult as we go all the way to the last 2, getting shamatha, the 5th one, concentration, the first mode of meditation, and the 6th one, insight into emptiness, which is the most difficult. So the fact is, all the path is guiding us, developing us through these stages until eventually the last 2 are the perfecting of the wisdom wing. We do the beginning stages of the wisdom wing in junior school and high school. Then we do the beginning stages of the compassion wing in the next level, where we get to bodhicitta, and then we finalize our work. We perfect these different components. And then finally we become Buddha. So the first one, I'm not that knowledgeable about all this. I can only say a little bit, but I'll say what I do know. I can hope it's not wrong. So generosity, it sounds a curious one. What do you mean generosity? Why is that a practice? You know, that sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? But generosity, think about it. There's 3 levels of generosity. We'll discuss them. But generosity is like you think about it. It's a practice where you know, because is to see another person and think, what do they need? Now that takes courage. We do that with our children. We do that with our beloveds, but not much else. We see strangers. We think it's got nothing to do with us. Enemies, forget about it. We hope they suffer. But here, as we've already got bodhicitta, everybody is there to be helped. So generosity is a pretty profound one, because as long as Lama Tsongkhapa says in his wonderful Lamrim little poetic text called Hymns of Experience, he says, generosity is the wish-fulfilling jewel with which you can fulfill the hopes of all sentient beings. It's the big, oh, I forget the words. It develops the selflessness. It's the first one because you begin to develop the selflessness and undaunted courage to lead all sentient beings to enlightenment. In other words, think about this. When you're around the world meeting sentient beings as ants and birds and rats and boyfriends and strangers and people on the bus, you know, we see them, we usually see them through the normal, if we're a normal person, we see them through the lenses of our needs, don't we? We've got attachment, we have aversion, and we have indifference. So when you see all these people on the bus, you know, if you had to be there for like even 10 minutes, already in that 10 minutes, if you've bothered to look up and look around, you see these human beings. And already you're dividing them into the cute ones, the ugly ones, and the boring ones. That's it. We all do it all the time. We divide into friends, enemies, and strangers. So the cute ones, we want to look at them, you know, and if they look at us, we'll get so excited because we see them through the lens of attachment. They suit our needs. The ugly ones who like burp or smell, ooh, disgusting, their aversion. We don't want to look at them. But the rest are boring. We don't remember them, you know. So this is how we see the world. But if you're a bodhisattva, even the low-level bodhisattva, your eyes are wide open and you see these suffering sentient beings, all of whom are completely equal to each other, whether they smell or are pretty, we don't care. You see their hearts, you see their mind, you see their needs, you see their suffering. So generosity is if an opportunity arises and an ant is in front of you, the first job is, what can I do for it? How can I help an ant? What can I give an ant? People always need things. An ant needs a crumb of sugar or whatever it needs. It's hard to know what ants need. I put in the bathroom, there's some ants there. There's no food in the bathroom. The poor little ants whizzing around trying to find food, you know. So I figured I'll feed them. So I gave them some grated cheddar cheese. I love nice, tasty English cheddar cheese. It's very delicious. And you can get some here. So anyway, I grated a bit. And there's little baby ants. They were so tiny, and I can't believe this. This is like a mystery to me. I put a little mound of cheese in there, and 1 hour later, I walked in. There's not a fraction of cheese left. I couldn't believe it. I think some spirit had to come because there's no holes for animals. But I put the same cheese on the kitchen desk for the other ants. They didn't like the cheese. So it's even hard to please an ant, isn't it? You got to know how to please people. So you've got generosity is how can you help somebody? And already have a look at that attitude. If you're exhausted and drained and tired and depressed and angry, you don't want to help anybody. All you're thinking of is who's going to help me. So clearly bodhisattvas, even the lowest level generosity is unbelievable practice because you're all perky and happy thinking, how can I help, you know? How can I help these people? What do they need? You don't butt your nose in and start walking in houses and say, can I help you? Back off, please. Mind your own business. But if a sentient being arises in front of you, friend, enemy, or stranger, doesn't matter. If they need something, you'll intuit it and you'll give it if you can, you know. It's a profound practice. It's already huge. And it totally trains your mind to go beyond yourself, which is what we're doing on the Bodhisattva path, you know. So the first level of generosity is giving things. The second level is giving spiritual advice. Well, we love giving advice. That's supposed to be more difficult. We love giving advice. We'll give advice even if people don't ask us. We're such smarty pants, you know. We love giving advice. But to give €1, to give a franc, to give £1, to give $1, well, that's too difficult. I'm sorry, I'm poor. I haven't got enough. No. We find every reason not to give. Check our minds. You know, we don't like to give. This is a stupendous practice itself. And I remember really having to learn that when we ran the prison project. This started when I was editing Mandala. You know, I'm in America now, that's right. Been based in this country pretty much since about 1994. I was in Kopan Monastery. And I was very happy in Kopan Monastery. I was so content being there. I was editing books. I was giving a few classes. And it's just wonderful, you know, being around Tibetan monks because they kind of, I don't know, they leave you alone. You know, in the West, we're in each other's faces all the time, giving advice and barging in and fighting with each other. But it's so nice to be around these Tibetans and these Nepalis. It's their Asian style. They kind of mind their own business, you know. So it was very, very nice. Even I remember, because I'm a bit of an angry person, or people think I'm angry or whatever. But these monks, they laugh at me. They don't think I'm angry at all. They think I'm funny. you know. So it's so nice to be around people who aren't scared of you, dumping all their dramas on you and blaming you for their suffering. I probably am for the blame, but never mind. Anyway, it was very nice being there. And then suddenly I got this note from Vajrapani Institute, the nun. She's a nun now. Petra then, she asked me if I'd come and do a job at Vajrapani Institute, be the spiritual program coordinator. And I thought, oh, no way, I want to go to America, you know. I was quite relaxed where I was, enjoying being in Nepal. It was lovely. But then I suddenly got a note out of the blue from Lama Zopa. So Petra hadn't told him. He kind of just intuited that I'd been invited to go to America. And he said, oh, I've heard that you've been invited to go to America. He said, I've done an observation. They do that kind of like crystal ball thing. And he said, I think, you know, I checked up and it's very beneficial for others if you go, but maybe not much benefit for you. And it's very beneficial for you if you stay in Kopan, but not much benefit for others. But of course you decide. Well, I burst into tears and ran off and told one Lama, I don't want to go to America. He said, it's all right. You can come back if you don't like it. So I had to be noble and I decided to go. So that's when I went anyway, 94. Anyway, 95, I was telling you the story now. I can't lose the plot. What was I saying? Oh, I've lost the plot completely. What was I talking about? Generosity. Oh yeah, the prison project. Okay. So anyway, I started, when I started editing Mandala, I moved from Vajrapani over to another center 45 minutes away, Land of Medicine Buddha, where the international office, FPMT international office was based at that time, 94. So then I got the job of editing Mandala, the magazine of the FPMT. So then I did that. And then eventually I got a letter in about 96, I got a letter from this Mexican-American fellow who was 18, he told me 20, in a prison in California, you know, permanent lockdown, blah, blah, blah. So that's began the prison project. Now, the fact is, I was getting like $400 a month in my pocket, as well as my board and keep. So every time, so he wrote a book, he sent a letter, so I sent a book. Eventually, I sent a book. Then another person wrote, he told a friend. Then within a year, I had 40 people writing. And every time they'd write, I'd look in my pocket, I'd look in Mandala's budget. There was no money there. So this is the point now. This is actually getting us to enthusiasm. The fourth perfection, we'll get there when we get there. Enthusiasm is this optimistic view. It's possible I can do it, you know. We'll get there eventually. But here, even with generosity, I'd look in my pocket and there was nothing there, you know. So I thought, the first thought is you have to write back and say, I can't help you. But then you'd read this letter and you couldn't not help. It was on my desk. That letter was on my desk, not my friends. They were talking to me, you know. How could you say no to these people? They can't look at, most people you can look them on, tell them a website, send them a book. You tell them on a website, give them the Amazon link, give them the title, and the person buys the book for themselves. Forget about it in prison. They have nothing, they have nobody, they have no money. A few have computers now, and it's only because they can, you know, the evil companies are making them use email and charging them for it. That's the only reason they've got computers. These wicked people. Anyway, so what can you do? You can't leave this person sitting there. This is the one of generosity. When you have this attitude, the person in front of me, there's that homeless person on the street. They're in front of me, not Fred next door. They're in front of, that's my homeless person. That letter was on my desk. When you understand karma, you know it's not just random. So then I had to start to think, well, how can I help? So I'd find some money. I'd buy a book, I'd send a book. Then another letter would come and another letter would come. So you either say you can't do it because you haven't got the money. This is the enthusiasm one, we'll get there. But this is related to generosity. Or you go, well, maybe I should do it. Maybe I will do it. And then you'll find the money. And that's what happened. And that's how we really became very brave. So then at first I started doing that, 40 letters. I write the letters, send a book here, send a book there, get some discounts from the publishers, you know, whatever donations I got, I tried to use. But it was very limited. But the one, it forced me to think. It's forced me to think I can do it, you know. And that's the same. I think homeless people is a brilliant example. We don't like giving homeless people. We get very nervous, you know. Maybe they'll buy a gun. Maybe I'll give them a banana. They don't want your bananas. They want your francs. They want your dollars. They want your euros, please. And whether they use it as a gun, maybe if you do know they're going to use it with a gun, then okay, maybe don't give, be wise. But, you know, in the end, it's like an agreement you make. For me, it's like an agreement. You see a homeless person, you decide, I will give. You decide how much. And don't give 50 cents. That's like 1920. 100 years ago, 20 cents is useful. Not now. A pound minimum, 5 even better. $5, 5 euros, 5 francs, even better, maybe 10, probably 20. And the thing is, with giving money to people, you know, it's like we're happy to go into Starbucks or wherever you go for your coffee. And you analyze it, you give $5 for your coffee and then, you know, $5 for the bun or something. And then if you analyze the money you're giving to Starbucks or the coffee shop, you analyze it, you break it down, you know that some percentage of that is pure profit. You're giving a donation to Starbucks. Now, you don't mind giving a $3 donation in your $10 bill to Starbucks. You just, because you know it's called commerce. You don't complain. But to give $3 to the bloke outside who gives you nothing in return, sorry, no, I haven't got any money. So we all are like this. It's just natural because we're self-centered. I'm not trying to be mean about us. So we have to and this is the point about these views, we have to cultivate them. So you can start by cultivating in your mind. Of course you must, meditating, but you've got to cultivate it by putting your money where your mouth is. You put your hand out. But there's other things you can do. And this is where you start with the mind. This is profound, you know. I always, you know, the days when we used to get a bill, not on our computer, but in the letterbox. You got two envelopes, and one is a check for £10 and one is a bill for 10 francs, whatever currency you use. Think about this. I don't know anybody on this planet who, when they open a bill, they go, oh, great, a bill, I must pay it now. I don't know anybody like that. Even rich people, nobody likes to give money for a bill. Think about this. We don't like to give. You even owe it. You owe that money. You owe the money to Verizon. You owe the money to the mortgage for the bank. But we don't like giving. We have an immediate impulse to not give. Think about it. And then we think, well, it's weird to like to pay a bill. Well, excuse me, it's not weird. It's intelligent. The bank is kindly, you know, paying your, okay, they're all making their money. They've all factored in their own profit. That's their business, but you've agreed. When you borrow that money from that credit card, no one forced you to borrow. You agreed. I think credit cards are brilliant. I had about 15 or 20 when I ran the prison project. People are shocked when they hear this. American banks will give anybody credit. They're so cheap and mean. They're happy to lose billions. They still make profit. So I had about 20 credit cards and I used them, but I've got the best credit rating in America because I paid all my bills. So when you have this view of karma, number one, you know there's no way in the universe you want to pollute your mind with being mean. There's no way you want to pollute your mind with stealing. Of course you don't. You don't want to hurt yourself. So then you're your own boss. So then you know you want to be generous. Guess why? Because generosity is the most powerful practice. As Lama Zopa says, the key cause of just getting a human body, and have a look at the numbers, please. There are 7 billion. It's like nothing. You've got probably, even in Zurich, you probably have 7 billion mosquitoes in your backyard one summer evening. That's 7 billion sentient beings. Well, we got a human body. We like won the lottery. It's not a lottery, really. We caused it with virtue. And the main cause of getting a human body is an accumulation of non-killing, specific, delicious, intentional, non-killing, and probably, as Lama Zopa says, the cause of having this life right now, getting this human body in our life, is the fruit of non-killing in the framework of keeping vows of non-killing. So it's like a miracle to get a human body. But the difference between us in our relatively reasonable lives and somebody living in a desert, somebody who has to work 18 hours a day for a bowl of rice, the difference is the accumulation of generosity. How come we can access even 1 grain of rice? How come we can even be born in a family, in a place where we can look up a job and get a job? How come we can just walk into a shop and buy a bowl of food? We take it for granted, thinking so arrogantly that we're so fortunate. No, we created the cause by being generous. So generosity and morality are the 2 main causes just to have the reasonable condition of a reasonable human life. So you can then use your human life to start practicing Dharma. So generosity is stupendous. So even for your own sake, it should break our hearts not to be generous, because every second we don't want to pay that bill, we are blocking our wish to give, and therefore we are blocking receiving, because the logic that causes receiving is having given. So if we understand even karma, we would want to be generous for ourselves' sake. There's no question about it, because there's nothing random. Everything runs according to the law of cause and effect. If you get 1 grain of rice, if you get 1 job, it's because you created the cause by being generous. I mean, we think about it, we would be broken-hearted not to be generous, you know. But we have to look into our minds and see how mean we are. We don't like paying a bill, and we think that's natural. Well, so a good way, a good practice, and this is a good Dharma practice, to start the wish, to start with the wish to give. So why not start with your bills? Honestly, it's a serious practice. I'm not joking. Every time you open your computer and there's your bill, your mortgage, your phone, your this, your that, whatever it is. And in fact, many are just come out of our bank automatically, but you should notice it and be conscious and think, I'm so happy to give. Now, why would you be happy to give the credit card company? Because they've just lent you money. You'd be on the street if you didn't have that loan. Yeah, they want some interest, but you've agreed to it. So be grown up. So be delighted. The fact that we have a house is because of the kind banks giving mortgage. Yes, people make money. That's not the discussion here. So it's a miracle. It's a miracle to be able to have all this. So then be so happy to pay that bill. And then the point is this, when we understand karma, just the thought I want to give is a virtuous karmic seed. Just the thought I don't want to give is negative. So why would you want to pollute your mind with being negative? Of course you don't. So it's mind training as much as anything. And then, of course, because everything exists on the tip of the wish, everything starts with the thought, then you've got to start with the wish to give. You have to. Don't just occasionally. You've got to know your mind every second and say, we don't want to give. It's automatic and it's so subtle. It's so quick. We have to catch it. So what do? You change it. I want to give. I remember one time when I was running the prison project and one nun wanted to give me some money, for the prison project. And she was selling her house in Australia. And she had a crystal and she wanted Lama Zopa to write a mantra on the crystal to put it in the house to help the house sell. So Rinpoche said to her, and this became the motto of my Bodhicitta Trust, the motto, all he said was, don't think of receiving, think of giving. This is profound, And the thing is, when we realize that the self-centeredness and the fear of not wanting to give, and not wanting to give your time, not wanting to give what people need, not wanting to give what you think is yours. We're happy to give a second-hand one. You buy a new coat, you'll give your old coat. You'll buy a new mug, you'll give your old mug. There's no virtue in that. Give you a new one. How about that? This is really a profound practice because it's not just being nice and giving people things. It's changing your mind fundamentally. It's the first level of this really major practice of seeing that your job is to benefit others. So whenever you see a sentient being, you think this way. What can I do? What can I give? It's my job. There's an ant there. There's a dog there. There's a mouse there. There's a homeless person there. And it takes courage to think this way. And of course, you be reasonable. You don't be all arrogant and walk around giving all your money away and then weeping. You give what you can. You budget it in. Be like the Mormons. Budget in 10% or something. Because if you don't budget it in, there's another practice. If you don't budget it in, you'll never have enough. You always say, oh, well, if I've got any left over after my phone, after my relaxation, after my massage, after my holiday, after my pension, after my mortgage, if there's any left over, I might give. But no, you don't want to give. Whereas if you budget it in along with the mortgage, then you will always be giving. So there's simple techniques to help us. And within your own limits. You might be a poor person, but we all know you don't have to be rich to be mean, and you don't have to be poor. Poor people, you don't have to be rich to be generous, and you don't have to be poor to be mean. Many poor people are very generous. Many rich people are unbelievably greedy and unbelievably ungenerous, and therefore totally miserable. We know this. So it sounds sort of superficial giving, like giving to charities or something. It's got much more meaning than that. It's profound. It's opening yourself to others, opening yourself to recognize that it's your job to help others, And that's where the Prison Project, we had no choice. They didn't have any option. These people writing, and you hear their hearts. They had nothing, nobody, no money, no friends, no family, nothing, living in these garbage dumps. So how could you not give? We had to practice giving to them. So when you practice something, as the Tibetans would put it, nothing ever gets more difficult with practice. So it's like all these things. These are trainings. It's not just be generous every now and again. This is training your mind to make this paradigm shift, to stop wanting always to receive, but to want to give. It's very profound, I tell you. That's the first level, giving money. And make it money, not just bananas. Homeless people, I'm sure they're happy to have a banana. But if your boss started paying you in bananas, I'm sorry, you'd be very upset. In case you might buy a prostitute or a drug, I'm going to give you bananas instead, Robina. I'll pay your grocery bill. You tell them to go screw themselves. How dare they? Well, it's the same with a homeless person. You kind of make an agreement. You see the homeless person, you decide I'm going to give. So you've just made an agreement. So it's not your business what they do with that money, just like it's not your boss's business to stick their nose in where you spend your money. There's an agreement. If you do your job, they'll give you money. Well, the same with the homeless. They've wanted money. You've decided I will give. Then you give what they want. Give them $10, give them $20 these days. Even when I lived I remember San Francisco, when I lived there 20 years ago. I'm not trying to show off. I'm just trying to tell you about the practice. I live on donations, okay? I live on donations. So all the more reason, how can I not give? Unbelievable. And the way that the lamas talk about the incredible importance of treating money with respect, you know. So because it's dharma, I mean, I get money because people, you know, what people give me donations. I'm some kind of nun or something. So how can I be just arrogant with that? How can I put it in a savings bank and build it up and buy things for myself? I buy a massage here and there. I do buy food. I am selfish. I do that. But I've got to use it for something useful. So of course I have to give to homeless people. Of course I have to give to poor people. Of course I do. Of course I do. My goodness. But the point is, if you're really clever, generosity is the cause of receiving. I mean, Lama Zopa Rinpoche is famous for his generosity. He's like famous. He's hilarious with his generosity. Because if you go into Lama Zopa, you give him a nice gift. You bought this fancy Tara statue, you know, it cost you $150. And it's beautiful, and you're so attached to it, and you give it to Lama Zopa, I promise you better let go right there, because the next person will walk out with it. He's like this channel for things, you know, and the more he gives, the more he receives. He's got somebody give him a house here. Someone gives him a house to live in over there. Someone gives him these things. He's got about different places full of these statues, full of things. He has nothing, but he keeps getting things because he's generous. I remember one time in London, at the centre there, Jamyang in London, when they were in Finsbury Park, Lama Zopa was seeing a monk. And then you know, Rinpoche walked out getting ready to go on the aeroplane. And Roger said he had his robe, he had his underskirt on. He had his petticoat on. He'd given away his robes. So Roger had to run around finding the monk and get the robes back. So Rinpoche could have some clothes to wear. Don't think of receiving, think of giving. We have to train our mind. You are the beneficiary. You're the beneficiary. Your mind becomes open. You become generous. You don't just hold on to it. You see, part of the problem with money is, well, we concretize it. I've got this much. I get this much salary. And numbers for us are very powerful. We concretize it. There's an absolute amount there. And that's where on the Bodhisattva path, if you are talking about money, and this is what I'm talking about, the prison project, I borrowed masses, but I always paid it back. But money is also, this is something else now. This is not the teaching. No, this is the teaching about generosity. This is a teaching about generosity. Because we're so brilliant in our culture, or the money managers, the people who are making billions of dollars, that's from their past generosity, not because they're nice now. They could be creeps now. That's from their past generosity. But the marvelous thing, the Bodhisattva attitude is, because you've got a view of emptiness and you see this, you don't see this inherent lump of money in the bank. You see it as a number. You see it as the fruit of generosity, and you want to help others. And if you're not sitting up in the mountains and you're trying to do things, then you'll want to grow that money. But we're so concrete, we see it as so self-existent. Oh, I've got, you know, $420,000 in the bank, and you watch the numbers grow a little bit, and you might get 4% if you play safe with it. You know, be like a bodhisattva, be dangerous, put into high risk things. If you've got merit, you'll keep bringing more money in. Money is a powerful resource. We can do nothing on this planet without money. Nothing. So when you have the bodhisattva view, not greedy, not grasping, not seeing it as self-existent, as a concrete number, I've got that much. You want to grow it. Then you can, that's what I saw with the prison project. I had to grow it. I tried so many ways and I lost money because I was trying to make more to help the prisoners. You have to think big. You have to be courageous. And this is a very important point. The bodhisattvas are outrageously courageous and fearless. They take risks. But if you've got merit, so you do your practice, and then you could be successful. You have to want to give. Want to give. The commonest way we think about it, money in our world. A friend I know got $1 million or something from some, whatever it was. He got $1 million. Young boy. Always mean. He's always been mean, never, very worried about money, freaking out, never having a job, freaking about having nothing. He's not that young. He's got a couple of daughters from 2 different girlfriends. And he's got this money, and it freaked him out even seeing the check. He had a panic attack almost. But he's terrified to do anything with it. He sees this number in the bank. He's too scared to try and make money on it. And yet he's too scared to spend it. And he said, well, I said, you could always sort of give a couple of bit to your daughters and send up a small trust fund. No, it's my money and I'm going to use it. And when I die, I'll give it away. Well, excuse me. That's a typical view about money. We're mean, we're miserly, we're concrete, we're so fearful, we're so grasping, Money is just a resource. Money is the fruit of generosity. It's the fruit of generosity. So to not be generous with it, but don't be stupid and just give it away on the street. That's just arrogant. That's foolish. It's a resource. Bodhisattvas are very skillful. Make money with it so you can do more giving. It's a very releasing, it's only a person who's got courage can do that, If we're fearful, like that typical person, that's typical. It's mine. When I die, I might give it away. But I mean, what's the point? You will be in the lower realms. What's the point of being in the hell realms and your money's going to somebody else? A bit late. Do something with it now, That's a generous attitude. And or many people are afraid of money. Oh, I can't think about money. Don't want to look at it. But they're arrogant with it. They just fly it around everywhere thinking they're generous. No, you've got to be strategic. It's an energy. It's a resource. And you've got to treat it with incredible respect. Because money is so huge for us. We don't pay things in kilos of rice anymore or 5 cows, We have this thing, label, dollars, whatever it is. So we've got to have a very wise attitude. See it as empty. See it as the fruit of generosity. See it as a resource to help others. It's a major way to help people. Instead of giving bananas. So intelligent. But we need a right attitude about it. So it's very powerful, I think. So any questions about that? Noon. My time, it's noon. Any questions, you people, about generosity? Specifically generosity. That's just the first kind, those 3 levels. This is just the first one. Any questions, people? Anything at all? Yes. Ariane, go on, sweetheart. Unmute.
Yes, Venerable. I do have a question of how we, well, for example, on Thanksgiving, I went and helped serve the homeless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And, but I found, I help at the food bank and that kind of thing. But what I noticed was it's so overwhelming right now. There's so many people that are hurting that I discovered I absolutely crashed. It caused me to have a dizzy spell, like anxiety or something for a whole day. I was so exhausted from the emotional.
Yes.
I mean, and some of the homeless I know, having been a psych nurse in the community, I know these people, and it just breaks my heart. So it's like,
that's right. Exactly.
What can I mean, I can't buy them all a hotel room. I can't.
No, that's right. Exactly, Ariane. This is the point, honey. It's such a good point. Now, if we use the example of the Dalai Lama as an example of a person who's perfected this path, can we agree on that as an example? Are you getting my point now? So if we look at him, we have to notice he does not get like what you just said. He doesn't get burned out. So we have to ask the question, why, don't we? What's the logic? What is it in a practice that will enable us to be generous and compassionate without burning out? That's the question.
Yes.
The question is the wisdom wing, darling. The people, we've all got attachment. We all have anxiety. We all have fears. We all have depression. We all have aversion. We all have worries. This is normal in the world. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
And that's why you suffered. You don't suffer because of compassion. You don't suffer because of helping others. You suffer because, oh my God, all these poor people. What am I going to do about it? I can't help them all. Oh my God, this is terrible. And it's mixed with fears. It's mixed with our guilt. It's mixed with anxiety. It's mixed with inability to help people. That's from the delusions. That's from the delusions. That's okay. Join the universe, darling. We're all like that. So the logic of the progress in the path is, as we keep lessening our own delusions, we become more content. We understand karma. We know why it's like this. So we're not panicking about it. And we just do what we can. And then have a good sleep and you wake up next day and you go back again. It's like that. That's the Buddhist analysis, darling. Are you seeing my point?
Yes, because there is a lot of guilt in there. Like I feel guilty that I have food
That's
on my
right.
table.
This is the major one. This is totally irrelevant, Ariane. And the reason you've got is because I just said you have to logically deduce, using the Buddha's view, that you have practiced generosity in the past, such that in this life you are not homeless. You do have a job. You do have a pension. So guilt is coming from ignorance. There is logic to why you have, and there's logic to why they don't have. And when we all understand karma, then you have compassion for people because they didn't realize the cause. And you don't waste what you've got because you realize it's due to your past generosity. So in both cases, guilt, you counteract the guilt with intelligence, with reasonableness, and with thinking, I'll continue to be able to help others and work on my mind. That's the bottom line. So it all takes time to put all these pieces together, but that's why the path is presented in this nice, coherent package. Do you understand?
Yes. Are there certain mantras? Are there certain mantras or things that one can say that help in a situation like that?
Darling, I mean, of course, there's many mantras, and we should use them all. But the real work is the real work, darling, is doing the analysis in the mind, using the Buddha's view. That's the work. That's the work. So then that lessens the guilt. We have a reason. It lessens the blame. It lessens the fear. It lessens the anxiety. I mean, I know this from having to work with people in prison. I had to practice all this. So I'm working. I can't help these guys. I can't take their pain away. I can't get them off death row. But I can give them methods. I can give them whatever I can. I can't do much. But when you know yourself, if you're helping a homeless person and you start getting guilty and you get depressed, then you're just remote from them and they'll think you won't like them. Whereas, I mean, with my prisoners, the same. I have to be enthusiastic and optimistic and treat them with respect. That's their karma. They're there from their reasons, but I give them what I can. But when I walk out that door, I don't think about them. Well, I do. I try to help them, but to be burdened by it and dragged down by it, Dalai Lama would have died at the age of 20 if he'd been like that. That's why he's been never stopping for 70 years, because there's no delusions and dramas in the way. So, of course, we have to aim for that, darling, one step at a time. And mantras, do compassion, sweetheart. Do Om Mani Padme Hum. Just sing Om Mani Padme Hum and fill yourself with love and compassion and give it to others. And the other one is rejoice in what you're doing, sweetheart. Guilty is a waste of time, but delight. I must have been generous. I'm going to use this to help others. Then you finish it. It's easy. Do you understand? So rejoice in your wonderful work that you're helping others to the best of your ability.
Thank you.
Oh, darling. Thank you so much. Who else has a question? Anybody else has a question? Nobody. Yes, sweetheart. Who is that? Francisco, go. Talk to me.
Venerable, thank you very much.
Good.
Fernando me va a traducir.
I will translate.
Okay.
Yo acepté un trabajo político porque quiero abrazarme del Dharma para poder ser generoso. Fui a unas rancherías para conocer a la gente y todas las personas piensan que lo correcto es matar a los animales porque viven de eso. Lo primero con lo que me encuentro es que todos matan animales.
So I accepted a political job, and then I was sent to these rural places where I ended up giving like, I don't know, he was speaking about how people in the rural parts of Mexico like to kill the animals because it's in what they live. So he didn't finish. Go on. Adelante.
Ellos piensan que de esta manera es su forma de vida y son felices. Yo sé que no, de acuerdo a la tradición budista. Voy a otras rancherías y son muy pobres y también lastiman a los animales y no hay muchas carencias. Mi manera de ser generoso es viendo lo que yo puedo aportar, pero como político no tengo los recursos suficientes para hacerlo. Entonces, no sé cómo seguir caminando por el camino budista. ¿Vas?
What you say? Unmute. Fernando, unmute.
I'm sorry. So he says that he knows that the way of living of these people by killing animals is not the best way to live, but he would like to give them like another way of doing it, but he can't do it. And he doesn't have the resources even on the political party where he is. This
is a really good point, Francisco. It's a really good point. Okay, so this is where we've got to have the wisdom wing and the compassion wing. And the fact is, so compassion, like Ariana's point, we have to wish to help. We can see the problem, even a simple thing. Let's say you just simply look at people who are eating the wrong food and you are a nutritionist. You can see immediately the problem. You can see that they're harming themselves. You can see that, but that's their family. That's how they eat. So and you have the wish to help. Now, compassion is the wish to help, but wisdom is what gives you the ability, one, to know how to help, but two, to know if you can help. So you can't just walk into those people and start giving them nutrition diets. They'll tell you to go away and mind your own business because they haven't asked you. So you can't help. So the other one is those people in that culture, in that rural district you're going, that's their culture. They've probably been doing it for hundreds of years. That's their mind. Due to their karma, they're born into that environment. Due to their past killing, they're born where they would kill an animal. You can't force them to change, but that's where a bodhisattva has the compassion to want to help. They have the wisdom that sees clearly the problem, but they also have the wisdom to know when to intervene, when to say something, or when to say nothing. But if we're coming mostly from attachment, that pollutes our compassion, and then we barge in and say things that aren't appropriate, and we end up alienating everybody. That's foolishness. So that's what Ariana was saying. We've got to have patience with people, and we've got to be not freaked out about seeing it. There's Ariana seeing all these poor people and she feels guilty because she can't help them. That's not helpful. You can't just look at all these people and think, oh, they're doing this, they shouldn't do that. Be wise, be skillful. And if none of them changes, then this is why you increase your compassion and increase your wish not to harm sentient beings. And though for Ariana, she's got to increase her wish to remember the benefit of generosity. How fortunate I am that I've got a home and a job and a pension. And that's not just good luck and bad luck. That's because of my generosity. So when she sees the suffering out there, the lack of generosity, she has compassion and she vows to continue to be generous, to continue to practice, to never give up. Same for you, Francisco. Are you understanding me? Are we communicating? We've got to be very humble and very patient and very wise and never give up. That's the key of the bodhisattvas. Never give up. Keep going, one day at a time, one person at a time, one lifetime at a time. Learning from it, getting wisdom, getting compassion. Otherwise, what's the point? If you start weeping, Ariane, and have guilt and have to stay home with a headache, no one gets fed. So you've got to keep going, you know. That's what I saw with my prisoners. I had to keep being persevering, optimistic, compassionate, kind, and then that helps them to do what they can. You understand? So do what you can, Francisco. Be loving, be kind, be wise, be generous, give advice. Maybe one person, you have one conversation and that person might be receptive to it. Then they might tell their sister and then it might grow from there, but we can't force change. So that's why bodhisattvas are very fearless, are very courageous. Good, thank you very much, so important. Anybody else? People have any questions? No? No questions? So we'll keep going. So the second level of generosity, which I said we all love to do, it's called giving advice, and they mean by spiritual advice. And I mean, I'm afraid we prefer that one because we love to talk. We love to think we know everything. We all go blah, blah, blah. And half the time we don't even know what we're talking about. So this is a very, obviously a profound one. So if you're a mathematician, you're qualified to give advice. But if you're not a mathematician, shut your mouth, please. But when it comes to spiritual advice, we don't know that we're not qualified. We just think we know whatever we know. We don't recognize we're not qualified, you know. So to give advice is very powerful. And if it is good advice, this is a more powerful level of generosity. Now, what this gets is, this is some interesting point. I remember Lama Zopa saying that if, you know, you could give food to every sentient being on this planet. I mean, you can't imagine the virtue of that. Unbelievable generosity. And we must do that if we can. But he says you could give one piece of spiritual advice to one person, and that could be more beneficial long-term with more result, because that person can then work on their mind, become enlightened, and benefit countless other beings. Whereas if you just give food, you're just benefiting the person's body. Now, that's a fact. But you don't just do one or the other. You do both. So this is where, when it comes down to us being generous in our lives, let's say we've got a job and we have some money or whatever, and we all know the common way we give in the world is we give to non-profits, we give to charities, you know, don't we? And we get our tax break. Nothing wrong with that. Be wise. You don't have to move out of your house. You go online and you click the non-profit you want to give to. But this is the point, and we've got to think about this. Like everything we do, we've got to be wise. Anything you do in your day, when it comes to, you've got to be skillful in what you do. You've got to use your life wisely. You've got to use your time wisely. Well, you've got to use your money wisely as well. So the fact is, there's so many things you can give your money to, but this is not being selfish. We often think this is being selfish, but this is intelligent. We have to create in our life as a practitioner, we have to take the opportunity to know which practices are most beneficial for oneself. Don't think this is selfish. This is intelligent. So if you're working all day and you've got 5 minutes for your meditation in the morning, but you've got a little bit of money to give generously, you've got to make the most of the practice you do and make it most meritorious. Have it to bring the best result karmically for you. Don't criticize this. This is intelligent. So that means you've got to think, well, whom will I give my money to? You can give it to whatever you like, but you should check. And the Buddhist approach, of course, is that any organization that doesn't just help people's bodies, also that, there's no question, but also those that help minds. That's a wise use of your finances. That's a wise use of your giving, But I mean, helping others, animals, help animals. Help creatures, help sick people, help anybody, but do a combination, maybe give some to your Buddhist center. Because for example, that's why people like to give to the prison project, because it looks like a social services project helping poor people, and it is, but also it's giving them Dharma, so it's both, best of both worlds. So absolutely, Lama Zopa is renowned for all his number of projects. He's got hundreds of projects because all the money he gets, it goes out again. So he feeds all the monks at the monasteries. He spends, there's a fund of several $1 million that he raised that feeds all the monks at Sarah J, 3,000-4,000 monks, more than that, all their meals. He helps old Tibetans down south. He helps animals. He's got all these animal projects, saving animals. There's so many things we can do. But if it's also helping people's minds, that's extra powerful benefit. So you be wise, you select where you give your money. Then you get the benefit of that as well as the sentient beings. It's being skillful with your money, And don't just give it because you often just think because we give it because we've got it. Be wise with it, be skillful, and treat it with incredible respect. And that also means pay your taxes, please. Don't cheat. We think, or don't pay your credit card bills. That's something that's very shocking because that means we don't understand karma and we don't understand generosity. I remember when I ran the prison project, and we paid salaries to people, but I'd pay a salary according to the person's needs. So one woman had children, so she got more money, and people agreed to it, okay? But one person, I remember, I said, well, do your budget, because we mostly don't, this is something I find interesting, okay? We mostly are hopeless with money. We don't do a budget. We either think we're generous or we think we never have enough money, but in either case, if you're generous, you just give it away without any respect, and you don't even know how much you give. That's totally irresponsible, thinking you're so generous. Or then you end up paying, you don't pay your credit card bill. I remember this particular woman, like most Americans, she had credit card, student debt. It's monstrous, masses of student debt. She never bothered to pay that, but she had a little thing in her budget called giving to poor people. I said, don't you pay your credit card debt? Your student bill. Oh, no, I can't afford that. So she doesn't realize she's destroying her own mind by literally stealing. So, okay, you talk to the credit card company, you negotiate, they'll all negotiate with you. But we just leave it there thinking, oh, it's only the bank. They don't care. They don't need it. What do you think you're doing to yourself? Forget the bank. You're destroying your own mind. You're stealing and you're lying, basically. So we've got to have such integrity. And we've got to know about what money we have. It's not being mean. It's not being greedy. It's being intelligent. If we have a lot of money, the same, or a small amount, then you can use it wisely, and then you can help grow it because it's a great resource. It's using it. This is a bodhisattva attitude. If you're on the Hinayana path and you're living in the mountains, you need nothing. That's the best attitude. But this is different. This is the bodhisattva path. You be wise with it and use it as an amazing resource so you can end up helping more people. Of course you want to do that. Look at Bill Gates. I've got to admire the man, $50 billion. And then Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett gave his $50 billion to what's his name? He even believes in paying taxes, old Warren Buffett. And I think since he's given his $55 billion to Bill Gates, he's probably made another $55 billion Because I mean, if you've got $50 billion, you can make a whole bunch more, baby. My goodness. And it's irresponsible not to. Just sitting on it. Oh, I've got this much in the bank, you know. It's just greedy. That's called greedy and lazy. But that's how we are. But money is it's one of the most concrete, self-existent things in our lives. It's very fascinating, you know. And we're so scared. It's incredible. So have a wise attitude. So, I was talking about generosity of advice before, and I'll go back to money again. I'm sorry. Yeah, so I was talking, if you're going to be wise, you can help the first generosity by giving money, and the second kind of generosity, giving spiritual advice by benefiting a Dharma center. You've got two kinds there, and that's brilliant. You know, it's just very sensible. And really, it's important before you die is to get your will done, have it all ready, and your mind practice giving it all away. Don't just, like that person I mentioned, sitting there, this lump of money in his bank. If there's any left over after I've spent it, I will give it when I'm dead. That's the worst attitude. Don't hold on to it. Don't be greedy. Don't hold on to it as concrete and self-existent and wait till you die to give it, you know. That's what's amazing about people like Warren Buffett, you know. He's just amazing. You got to admire him. Incredible. Very relaxed about it. Seems to be. He drives the same old car. He wears the same old clothes. He eats the same old crummy food. Seems like, you know, keeps making more of it. That's incredible. And then before you die, you've got to have it all in your mind. You have it written in your will, that's fine. But in your mind, you've got to have given it away already. You do not want to die with greed in your mind. You do not want to die with fear of losing, fear of not having. This is just terrible. You've got to give it away in your mind, you know, because you'll be dead any minute. This is generosity is an amazing, amazing bodhisattva practice, you know. Yeah. So the next one, giving advice, which is the more profound. If you can give both, amazing. Must give both, must do all. The next one sounds a bit abstract. It's called giving protection. It sounds peculiar. So saving someone's life, releasing a person from prison. That's giving protection. It's very interesting. It's very fascinating now. Okay, I've totally forgot to mention, this is wonderful. But these 6 perfections, when you take the bodhisattva vows, you take 46 or sometimes a bit more vows, secondary vows they talk about, and you've got 18 or 16, I forget, 16, I think, root vows. But all the secondary vows, I think I'll send you this commentary. It's not in the book I sent you. I'll send you another one. And it's from Alex Berzin, this wonderful American scholar who's got an amazing website, and he gives lots of teachings, and he's a really good resource. So he's got a commentary on the bodhisattva vows. So each of the secondary vows they're divided into groups related to each of the 6 perfections. So the vows related to generosity are all to help you create more generosity. So it's very fascinating in the bodhisattva vows. There's a whole different approach, you see. In the lay vows, in the wisdom wing, those vows are related to helping you protect yourself from not creating negative karma. So don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, etc. There's no wriggle room. You're very disciplined. But the bodhisattva vows are way more profound. They're also don't. Vows are all about behavior. Vows are about body and speech. So vows, the vows, the bodhisattva vows are also don't do this and don't do that. But the crucial component in the bodhisattva vows that makes you break it is the motivation for doing it. So if you do, so that means in the bodhisattva vows, you can do that action, but if the motivation is good. In other words, you have or even there's another vow in the bodhisattva vows where you have a vow in the bodhisattva vows to break an earlier vow if it's for the benefit of others. So clearly you can't play with that. That's pretty profound. And this is where the bodhisattva teachings are so profound, because they're way beyond normal behavior. They're completely different. When a person's a bodhisattva, you know, going from life to life, practicing these 6 perfections, you have no idea who's a bodhisattva. Tibetans have a saying, you don't know who anybody is, so don't judge, please. Because they're not, you can tell a person who's got the first level of vows, they're behaving nicely, they're humble, they're simple, they have not much money, not much sex, not much drugs, they live a simple life. That's the first level of practice. abiding by the vows of individual liberation, controlling your body, speech, and mind. Now on the Bodhisattva path, you're more advanced, you're more outrageous, you're more amazing, more spacious. You've got your ground, you're rooted in your proper vows, the first vows, no killing, no stealing, no lying, no way. But now with the Bodhisattva vows, your main purpose is to do what is best for the other person. It's more profound. It's what's best for the other person. So if you can see clearly that it is best to lie, you will happily lie because you know it is best for that person. I mean, we run around lying all the time, thinking it's best for the other person, but we're not that clear. We're just mainly protecting ourselves, you know. But this is a really profound one. The Bodhisattva vows are more outrageous, but the first 6 are related to helping you practice generosity. So, for example, or to help others practice generosity. So always it's what's best for the other. So you have a vow in the Bodhisattva vows that, let's say, you know, where's somebody, let's say Susie invites me for lunch. And she rings me up, I'd love to offer you some lunch. And I just can't be bothered. I'm just being lazy. You know, well, I break a Bodhisattva vow because I prevented Susie from creating the generosity of offering me a meal. And that's where, you know, we normally in our lives only do what we want to do. We only follow attachment, or we don't do something because we don't want to do it. And we think that's normal life. Well, Buddha calls that being self-centered, following attachment and following aversion. Nobody criticizes you for that. Whereas if you're trying to practice the Bodhisattva path, you would do what's best for that person. Maybe even I've eaten my dinner, but because she's offered me lunch and maybe wants to talk, I'd love to come for lunch, Susie. That then I don't break a vow. So this is forcing us to do what's best for the other person. This comes to our relationships, you know. I mean, I mentioned this, I don't like to get too gross, but I get a bit radical sometimes how I talk. But in relationships, you've got your boyfriend or your husband or your wife. We only ever have sex if you feel like it. You think it's so noble. But what if you don't feel like it one day? Let's say you got a headache and your wife was feeling all cozy and you know, you be kind to her. You have sex with her. Give it as a generosity. You mightn't even feel like it. This is shocking in our culture. No, don't be so self-centered. It's easy to have sex if you're both attached. But when you're tired, that's an incredible act of generosity to your partner. Giving for the sake of the other person. You know, not just following attachment. I mean, that's an extreme example, excuse me, being blunt. A person says, you know, even if you're at a meal and person passes you some bread, oh, no, thank you, I'm gluten-free. Well, don't be so self-centered. No one says you have to eat it. Accept their gift. Thank you, how kind you are. Leave it on the plate. So it's forcing us to remember, not just to follow your feelings. You're following what's best for that other person. Now that might happen to be, let's say, you know, you're in a taxi and a person's really greedy for their maybe they're greedy for their I know one time in London years ago, when we still had, no, it was years ago before the new pounds was in the 60s, 70s. And I wanted to give a what do you call, tip to the taxi driver, but I only had brown coins. So I had a whole bunch. It was probably worth about £1, but he saw the brown coins and he swore at me and threw them out the window. You know, it's like he was so arrogant. So, I mean, what I'm getting at is I got lost there, but maybe it's not advisable sometimes for the homeless person or the taxi driver to give a tip. Maybe you say, no, I can't afford it today, and let them abuse you. It doesn't matter, because that's a different scenario. That's where you are being conscious and you decide it's not useful to give. But not for your sake, not because they're mean, it's because you think it's best for them. That's not giving. That's not a practice of giving. That's a different one. But we have to have wisdom when it comes to what's best for the other person. That's like being a good parent, you know. Tough love. That's how bodhisattvas are. You've got to have the wisdom to know what to do and how to help. That's the general view behind the bodhisattva vows. But here we're talking particularly about generosity. So that's different. Give something, even if you don't feel like it. Giving, because it's a practice for you. So giving protection is the third one, as like I said, you know, giving protection, saving people, protecting. I mean, Alex Berzin talks about it, you know, old people, helping them, offering you a seat on a bus. It's very funny, that one, because there's something you don't realize you're old. Then people start offering you seat on the bus, you get a bit of a shock, you know, you realize you're an old person, you forget. It's very funny, that one. So anyway, taking care of people, looking, and don't be patronizing, you know, but people who need help, sick people, protecting people from fear. Many people live in a lot of fear. Just giving people love and kindness. That's protection. That's giving protection. calming their minds down. It's very powerful. So all of these practices are necessarily to do with doing what's best for the other person. This has nothing to do with what's best for you. This is others. The first level of vows and the first level of practice are doing what's best for you, protecting yourself from being neurotic. It's very different emphasis. So this is naturally more advanced. Because let's face it, if you're neurotic and deluded and ridiculous and depressed and angry, you can't help a fly, you know. You wouldn't even know what is best for the fly. It demands wisdom. It's very powerful. Are there any more questions, please? We've still got 30 minutes, I know, but are there any more questions? We're on generosity still. We can go to next one in a minute. Okay, that's fine. So next one is morality or ethics. So this one, you know, the whole path of Buddhism from A to Z is the practice of ethics, actually. But there's different levels of it. So here, so in junior school and high school, in the first and second scopes of the Lam Rim, that's called, and those layperson's vows or the monk and nun vows are all that level of the vows of individual liberation. All the vows that help you control your body and your speech and so that you can become liberated. You're the beneficiary of those, you know. And you're protecting yourself. Now I got lost. I forgot the point I was going to make. Oh yeah. So that's called those vows and that level of practice. This is called the practice of the ethics or morality of restraint. You're refraining from harming. You're calming yourself down. You're controlling your body and speech. And this Buddha Shakyamuni, he represents that. He's the personification of control, body, speech, and mind. Look at him, you know. Now, at the Bodhisattva level, this is called the morality of benefiting others. There's a major difference between these. This is where we have to understand, again, like I'm saying all the time, these different levels of practice. And your ability to help others is driven by your ability to help yourself, which is junior school and high school, which is why compassion is more advanced. So this is the morality. So here you're trying to practice all levels of morality, but here specifically, it's the practicing the perfection of the ethics of helping others. So generosity is the same, really. It's giving things, but it's the same attitude. You're seeing what people need. Here, it's how to help people. More, it's also giving, but it's more how best to help somebody. And that demands more wisdom because, you know, with generosity, it's to do with things mostly, but spiritual advice is pretty powerful. But here you can see it's also to do with how to help people. What help do people need? It seems pretty evident, really. Who do you help? Well, everybody. But we tend to only think, not being mean, you know, wonderful, like work Ariana's talking about, helping Ariane, helping people as homeless, helping the poor, helping the sick, helping people in prison, helping people who can't help themselves, helping people who are really sick, helping animals, helping creatures. There's enough of this to fill our lives 24 hours a day. But also if we can help crazy people, if we're qualified, Ariane does that as well. She works in a psych nurse, did you say? Something. Okay, so that's amazing, having skills to help people's poor crazy minds. That's even more amazing. So you help whoever you can help. That's what we see, and we honor that people like that in the world. We love people like this. We admire people. That's why it's so moving, I think, during all this COVID-19 business. And the newspapers and the news reports and the televisions are full of these news of ordinary people doing wonderful things to help other people. It's so moving, actually. So many stories all the time. And you really can see ordinary nice people, like, you know, some 3-star chef, you know, helping his sister who's a nurse by making masks. Then suddenly now he's offering lunches to all the nurses. I mean, to think outside your own self. And that's the generosity one. What can I do? If we're overwhelmed by our own misery, we never think, what can I do? In fact, many people are so miserable, all they think is, what can other people do for me? We can see this. And they're the miserable ones. So that it's powerful to reach out ourselves. But of course, as Ariane's point is, you can't do more than you can do. We're not like the Dalai Lama. We're not like him. We can't pretend, but we can aim for this, but we can do what we can do. So if you're really overwhelmed one day, you don't go in, you don't feel guilty. You have a break. We've got to have a break, you know. If you're the greatest yogi who can sit up in the mountains naked, like Geshe-Lama Kontrog, naked, no clothes, no food, 24 hours a day working away, great. But we're not like that. So we've got to pace ourselves, know where we're at. That's why some of those poor people, you hear about some of these amazing workers in the hospitals that kill themselves because they got so distressed. This is heartbreaking, you know, that we don't know how to help ourselves. This is what's heartbreaking. But we do what we can. We can't do more. But that's what the Bodhisattva one is, Ariane. You have the courage. I want to do more, so I'll keep practicing the Bodhisattva path, because you know you can do more as you get more advanced. So you've got to keep, in that sense, be persevering and be optimistic. This is the fourth. We'll get to that one. So what else can I say about morality? That's about it, really. There's more to say about these things. They talk about, you know, the final proof. Go back to generosity. The final proof of having accomplished generosity is that you can give your life for somebody else. So clearly you can't play with this, but you hear these wonderful stories in all the literature, you know. There's a story about the Buddha, one of his past lives, and it's honored at this place called Namo Buddha outside of Kathmandu, where he was up on a mountain or up in a hill, and he sees this mummy tiger and her babies, and he sees that they're all starving. So the mummy tiger is about to eat her babies. And the Buddha, the Buddha in his past life had such unbelievable compassion for the Buddha, for the tiger, not for the little babies, as well for them, but unbelievable compassion for the mummy tiger because of the negative karma she'd create by killing her babies, you know. So he cut himself so the blood would come, and then he threw his body down and offered his body to the mummy tiger, you know, so they all had a feast. Now, this insane story, this is like, you know, we'd be called seriously mentally ill if we were seen to do that, you know. But you know what, people? Start with giving, as Lama Zopa puts it, just one tiny, tiny drop of your precious blood to that little mosquito. Start there, okay? Just only one drop of blood, not even more than one. But look at the panic attack when we have to give one precious drop of our precious blood to one little mozzie. I mean, think about it, you know, how we cling to this body. This is the proof of you've got generosity. Way to go, okay? Way to go, one step at a time. There's another wonderful story I always tell about this one bodhisattva. I remember Kirti Senchab Rinpoche told this story, and I remember when he said it, it was stuck in my mind, the way he said it. He's very little Lama, the way he said it with his voice, you know, was translated, of course. But it was so moving. He said there's a particular, I forgot whatever level, because you go through different stages of bodhicitta. You get your bodhicitta first, and then when you've finally realized emptiness, then you kind of climb you get onto the first of the 10 stages of the bodhisattva path. And you're going through each of these stages, progressively getting more powerful, more amazing, more success, more powerful in your capacity to help others, including your capacity to manifest different bodies for sentient beings. You're so amazing by now. So this particular level bodhisattva, I don't remember what level, he said, for that bodhisattva to cut off his hand and offer it to a starving animal is as inconsequential as a leaf falling off a tree. Now, again, that would be definitely called mentally ill. You know, you're extremely mentally ill if you did that. But this is the point. And so let's analyze that. What kind of, what would that be, you know? Before I go into that, we hear about people, though, generous, compassionate people giving their lives for others. That's not uncommon. I always remember the, what do you call that big building that went down? You know, the two buildings in New York in 2001. And you read all the stories about what people did. People running up the stairs to help others instead of running down the stairs. And it's never criticizing people. We're all driven by the same rubbish. But some people have this amazing compassion, capacity, isn't it? Due to past karma, obviously, to be generous and to be enormously compassionate and to literally, people must give their lives all the time. You know, people do admire that. But feeding your hand to an animal sounds a bit weird because you'd say, well, doesn't he notice the pain? And that's where it's really extreme. And that's the point. When you've got to this level, when you've realized emptiness, you're an Arya Bodhisattva, at a certain level, you've completely given up delusions. You don't have any attachment. There's no shred of attachment. There's no shred of anxiety, depression, jealousy, low self-esteem. There's no shred of ego grasping. So when there's all those delusions are gone, like I said before, there's space in your mind for this unbelievable wisdom and unbelievable compassion. And so seeing a starving animal, now obviously, bodhisattvas aren't stupid. If there's a shop around the corner that sells some food, they wouldn't cut their stupid hand off. That would be idiotic. It's only if there's no choice, if there's no option, like the tiger, the mummy, the Buddha giving his body to the tiger. If he could found some meat for the tiger, he would have offered them meat. They're not kind of like drama queens trying to prove how special they are. If there's no choice, then there's clearly no choice. So in other words, try and imagine there's no ego grasping, there's no self-centeredness, there's no sense of this neurotic I that usually runs the show. And there's only this, there's all this left in the mind, this unbelievable compassion for the suffering of this animal, like as if it's their most precious child. And of course, there's wisdom. There's no belief in a separate I. So of course, cutting your hand off, feeding it to a starving animal is indeed as inconsequential as a leaf falling off a tree. Not that he doesn't know. As that bodhisattva, she would know that the pain is there, but her compassion is so much more enormous. That's the point. The compassion is so stupendous that the bit of pain is like nothing. It's like nothing. Now, even now when I think about Lama Zopa, I don't know where he's at, but he seems like he's pretty special. Dalai Lama seems to think he's special. His behavior looks like he's special. His project shows that he's special. His behavior, he doesn't sleep. He meditates all night. He's got these hundreds of projects. He's got hundreds of thousands of students. He always seems to be perky and funny and happy. Well, in 2011 in Australia, I was there at one of our centers on retreat, and Rinpoche had a stroke. So normally when you have a stroke, most people, we get sick. You have a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and there's tears, and the family are worried. Well, Rinpoche, you know, for these people who are bodhisattvas or Buddhas, whatever level he's at, I don't know. It's almost like this event, and this is how bodhisattvas talk. This event seems like it increased his compassion like 1,000 times. It increased his joy. This is hard to even put words to, okay? So I remember when Roger and the others monks, the Tibetan monks all took him to the hospital. There was a little Catholic hospital nearby. And then Roger was videoing and sent a little video next morning of Rinpoche. And he just had a stroke. Well, he was giving a little talk to us, but it sounded like a senile drunk. He couldn't get words out of his mouth. He was all puffed up from drugs, but he was laughing hysterically. I mean, you either think he's mad, but who would laugh hysterically if you're having a stroke, you're having a mental breakdown, you know? And all the time people talk about, these Catholic nuns could not get over these outrageous Tibetan monks. There's Roger sitting on his chair with him day and night, helping him doing his swimming to get all the body going and everything. And all the time they do is laugh, you know. And Rinpoche, it seemed like he wrote about it somewhere. I haven't seen it. Never stopping talking that by having this suffering, what bodhisattvas do with suffering, it causes them to become even closer to the suffering of others. And so they take upon themselves, they make all this suffering they're having to be like, this is completely Tonglen. They take it upon themselves and are so happy to have this suffering, because for their mind, it's helping them get closer to Buddhahood. It's smashing the delusions and it's increasing their compassion for others. So it's like it seemed to increase his compassion about 1,000,000 times, but he was joyful. He was joyful. I mean, all I can do is tell you the evidence. I can't express it myself. I wouldn't know how to have that. But why he's like that is, or why we're the opposite, why we have a panic attack when we get a headache, is because we have attachment. Because attachment can't stand problems. It has a panic attack. And of course, in our culture, that's called normal. Well, Buddha's just more radical in what he calls normal, you know. That's a Tonglen one. Bodhisattvas are too much, I tell you. But for me, Bodhicitta teachings are over the top, you know. They're outrageous. And that's why if we start to hear all the stories about bodhisattvas, you know, doing outrageous things, we've got to understand the teachings properly. We've got to understand that it's possible to have no ego. It's possible to have no attachment. It's possible to do something harmful to another for their benefit. It's possible. We can't accept that. That's too much for our minds. We freak out because we just see things as we believe them, you know, through the lenses of delusions. So the bodhisattva teachings are pretty amazing, I tell you, pretty outrageous. Pretty outrageous. I think bodhicitta seems to me, emptiness seems to me easy in comparison with bodhicitta. I mean, I don't know, you know, it's outrageous, outrageous. And Buddha says we've all got this capacity, you know, every one of us. So talk about courageous and talk about fearless. And fearless is a really good point. When we talk about emptiness, we'll do that on the last day. That's really clear. Emptiness is clear that when we've realized emptiness, and these great Arya Bodhisattvas have, They have gone beyond a separate sense of I. So their mind is like limitless in courage and fearlessness and amazing wisdom and all the rest. You know, fearless is a great word, because when you realize emptiness, there is no fear. There's no longer attachment. There's no longer aversion. There's no longer delusions or anxiety. There's no longer low self-esteem and laziness and all those things, because there's no longer a sense of I. I mean, not in an erotic sense, in a clear way, because now you're connected with others powerfully. Any questions, you people? Thank you so much. Yes, Talia. Is there no questions? Yes, Talia. Good, darling.
Yes. So I typed it out so I can read it a bit better that way. So, Venerable Robina, thank you so much for the juicy teachings. Could you please say a little bit about the formal ceremony to receive the Bodhisattva vows, and as to who is qualified to take these vows?
Well, yes, I mean, it's in, you know, people in our organization, some of us have been given permission to give refuge and lay vows, but it seems like, I mean, I don't know if any of us have been given. I know that Rinpoche gave me permission to give Bodhisattva vows, but I've never done it in the centers. He gave me permission when I was running the prison project. I was giving Bodhisattva vows to some of the prisoners. So I suppose if he gave me permission, but I mean, I've only done it in 1 or 2 centers, but mostly individual cases. But I think if you have teachers around, I'm talking about myself personally, so you're given permission. In my case, because I work for Lama Zopa, as a teacher, I'm in the FPMT and he's the boss. So he gives permission for people to give vows or not vows. So therefore, but the other hand is if you've got any lamas who come and visit, people who are visiting, and you're close to those lamas, and you can request them to give. So you need to know whom so a person individually needs to know who they're close to, and they need to ask the person they call their teacher, and that teacher might say yes or might say no. That's the person's side. You know, you have to just ask. From the center side, you need to know who's qualified and who's not, so that you can get that for your students, you know. So there's different bits of different jobs we all have. Do you understand? But if individuals, if you really want something these days, people, centers, are you guys having people come to visit the center, or are you still doing everything by Zoom?
We have a little bit, we're limited to 10 people attending the center. So a lot of us are.
So you'd have no teachers coming?
No.
Okay, okay.
I haven't had any teachers coming since last year, since this March.
I understand, darling, yeah. So therefore, you've got to check out who you'd like to do. If you want to have a ceremony in the center, I'm now talking to you as the SBSC of your center. If you want to have a ceremony in your center, you need to request somebody who you want to give it. You have to decide one of the teachers around the world who you'd like to give the Bodhisattva vows, and you request them. They might say yes, they might say no. You have to decide that. You don't know who's qualified, but if you ask somebody, they'll tell you.
Okay.
Do you understand, darling?
Yes.
So from the center side, you can organize that. From individual side, they need to ask a person they feel close to. So yes, you understand my point here, Talia.
Yes.
Good.
Thank you. And then on the in terms of vessels, qualified vessels. So who will be qualified? Individually, we have to assess for ourselves to be qualified to take these vows, or when we will be ready.
I understand. Exactly. I understand. Very good question. Well, you know, if we look at the whole path, the Lamrim, or we look at the 3 principal aspects of the path, which is another way that Tsongkhapa packages the same teachings, then, you know, in order, for example, to take the tantric vows, or tantric empowerment, you need to have the 3 prerequisites. The first one is what you get from junior school and high school, which is you need to have at least an appreciation of renunciation. You've got to know what suffering is and know its causes and know how to stop suffering and its causes by living in the, so and then you take the layperson's vows, and you would live and you do your purification every day. That's how you get renunciation. You work on your body, your speech, and your mind, and you live in the pratimoksha, or individual liberation vows. That the whole package there is you get renunciation of suffering and its causes. So you'd have to have a strong appreciation for that. Now the next one, you'd need also, in order to take the tantric vows, the tantric empowerment, you'd need to have a strong appreciation for exactly what we're talking about here, an understanding of the Bodhisattva path, of how it's more to help others, but you had to understand the vows, and you to have taken the Bodhisattva vows and understand them and have a genuine appreciation of them and try to keep them. but understand the philosophy behind the Bodhisattva approach, how it's different from the first approach. So then you're qualified to enter into the tantric path. So, and then you take the tantric vows. So obviously here, to be qualified to take the Bodhisattva vows, you need to have a strong understanding, again, of renunciation. You've got to have a good practice, having taken refuge, having taken the lay vows, having to understand what's behind the lay vows, how you're protecting yourself from harming others, understanding karma, and having a really strong purification practice, all of which is to protect you and to protect your body, speech, and mind. That would be the prerequisite. And then you have to have an understanding of the compassion teachings and what it means and how it's more advanced and how you want to help others. So then you'd study the teachings and be aware, study the teachings, understand them to some degree, and then realize, yes, I want to take the Bodhisattva vows. Do you understand? You don't have to wait till you've got high realizations. No, that's catch-22. How you get realizations is by living in the vows. You've got to take the vows. People tend to think, oh, when I'm really good, then I'll take the vows. But that's a bit like saying, when I can ride a bike perfectly, then I'll start training to ride a bike. It's back to front. The reason you take vows is to purify your mind and help you create merit so you can progress. So you've got to have an appreciation of the Bodhisattva path based on a sound appreciation and understanding of and practice of the individual liberation path. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, what else? People, anything? Nothing? No questions, people? No questions? Not a single thing?
Yeah, I've got a question, Robina.
Good,
Nancy
I'm happy.
here.
Who is it? Who's talking? Hang on, let me have a look.
Nancy.
Lindsay, good talking. Talk to me.
I've got a question when it comes to helping people if they want your help at all, because I have new neighbors and I work at home because of Corona, and I hear my neighbors, they are shouting at their baby, or it's a 1-year-old child, and I think the mom is a bit overwhelmed with all the new situation. So I feel sorry for the child, but also for the mom. But
That's
I don't know if I should knock at their door and ask, because it should not appear as I would.
No, of course
judge.
not. That would be very patronizing, wouldn't it? But I mean, can't you just? How long have you? Is she the new one, or you're the new one?
She's the
How
new
long has
one.
she been there?
3 months.
So you haven't even knocked on her door yet.
Yeah, we know each other.
Okay, then why can't you just reach out more and be loving and kind and have a cup of tea, invite her a cup of tea, or just become her friend, and then you'll see where it goes. If there's no way for it to go further, you will soon see. But you just got to be a little bit more brave. It's wonderful to want to reach out to her, to be her friend, just to become her friend. And if she trusts you and likes you, she'll confide in you. But if she doesn't, she won't. You can't force it. But don't hold back. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, at the moment I'm just a bit sorry for the child.
But you just said, but I'm giving you a solution. What you got to look at, honey, is why you're holding back. Why are you holding back from becoming her friend? Not being patronizing and say, I hear you shouting. No, that's rude. But what's holding you back? That's what you've got to look at in your own mind. Why are you holding back from befriending her? I'm just asking you that question for you to look at. You don't have to tell me. But there's obviously something holding. It's 3 whole months. What is holding you back, do you think? Why are you afraid of becoming her friend? What is that, my question?
Well, actually, I'm not afraid of being her friend, but
Well, then what's holding you back from being her friend? Something's holding you back. You haven't become her friend yet. You haven't invited her out for tea, haven't invited her for lunch, showed her affection.
yeah, well, I brought her some marmalade for moving in. So
okay, 3 months ago.
But but I knocked at her door and said, everything okay? But she.
Why do you say that? That's patronizing. That's rude. That's arrogant. I would never say
just
that.
Just in a nice way, not about her child, just because we are 3 families in this house, so we are not that many people and everybody knows each other.
Oh, okay.
And because she is new, I thought that's up to me, because I'm longer here, to say hello, how are you?
But I mean, how often does she shout at her baby? 20 times a day? Once a day?
Yeah, no, it's 20 or 30 or, many times.
Always shouting. She's at home all the time with the baby.
Yeah.
The husband's not, there's no husband.
There is a husband, but he's working very long.
So does she shout when he's there too?
Yeah, sometimes, but well, not that often.
Okay, darling, all I'm doing is making suggestions, but tell me what you think. What do you think? How can you help? What do you think?
I've really got no idea, because this is because of the, I don't know, because I want to help her too, because she seems that's
But I'm talking about helping her. She's the one who needs help, baby. She's the one who needs help. If she's helped, the baby will be okay. Don't worry about it. You should have more compassion for the mother. You really can't imagine any way that you can become her friend so she'll start to trust you. That's what I'm trying to get to you, but you don't seem to. I'm just asking you. You don't think what I'm saying is a good idea. You don't know how to you don't know how to reach out to her heart. Do you ever invite her out? Do you ever come for a cup of tea, come for lunch? Do you ever look at her baby and praise the baby? Do you ever get past the front door?
Well, in Corona times, it's not that easy.
I know, but Teresa, are you sort of seeing where this conversation is going?
Yeah.
All you can do is what you think you can do, coming from the right place. It must be very annoying for you having this shouting all the time, and that must bring up a lot of aversion. I understand that, but it's got to come from compassion for the mother. She's the one who needs help. Now, this is the point, honey. If there's nothing you can do, and you're telling me in a sense there's not, then what are you left with but your practice of patience and learning to find a way to see it as good? That's tough practice. That's called transforming problems. Yeah, it must make you crazy every day. I'd go crazy every day, that noise. And it's loud, is it?
Oh, yeah, but well, actually, thanks to Buddhism, I'm not as annoyed as I would be 2 years ago.
So you're practicing. This is fantastic.
But this is like the next step. You know, I could leave her alone, but I have this feeling in my heart that I could do something, but because this is new to me, I need help from you.
Do you understand what I'm saying? It's something very natural, what I'm suggesting. It's nothing magical. All I'm suggesting is that you become her friend. So you've got to think of how you can become her friend. You say you're not afraid, but I think you are holding back. You are holding back. You're afraid of seeing, you're afraid of sticking your nose in. That is just your problem, I'd suggest. She'll soon find out if she wants to be your friend. If she tells you to, if she says no every time, there's only so much you can do, sweetheart. But maybe you go a bit, stretch yourself a little bit and think, how can I become her friend? Because if you become her friend and she likes you and trusts you, then it'll shift something for her. That's up to you. And if there's no way, then you give up on it and just love her for who she is and sing a few mantras. Maybe you can have a medicine Buddha mantra or Tara mantra playing so they can hear it.
Okay.
You understand? All right, darling. Well, it's time to go. I think it's time to go home, you people. Look, it's nearly finished. Enough is enough. So I think I'll send you also another document. I'll send you the commentary on the Bodhisattva vows, which might be useful because this is related to the 6 perfections. And that'll be another PDF that you can send people, Talia, okay? It'll be some commentary, from Lama Zopa and from also Alex Berzin. I'll send you this document. It's got more things in it that are necessary for this teaching, but it'll be useful to read it, okay? And for people to understand, because all of these secondary vows are linked to each of these 6 perfections. It's very helpful to hear. All right, people? I'll leave you a bit early, 5 minutes. Okay, sweethearts. Thank you, everybody, so much. Jang Chub Sem Chog Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ke Guchi, Ke Panyampa, Me Pa Yang Gong Ne Gong Du, Pa Ba Sho, Ge Wa Ji, Nyu Du Dag Lama Sange Drub Gyo Ne, Drawa Chi Kyang Madu Pa, De Sala Go Pa Shog. Have courage, okay, everybody? No, like Ariane's point, we can't do much now, but we aim for it. Nancy's point, we've got to aim for more. Keep his holiness as our goal. We can be like him. He's showing us how to be, you know, one step at a time, never giving up. Okay, you people. Thank you, sweethearts, so much. See you next week. Bye, darling.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you next week.